Good morning. God bless. You can be seated. And I think it's been closer to 35 years we've known each other. We were 10 at the time. Yeah, we were 10 when we met. And and it is such an honour to be here with Lee, my wife, on this particular day. You've got no idea how excited I am for you all and what you're going to do, the impact you're going to have on the Sunshine Coast. You have no idea. You really don't. You're seeing glimpses of it, but you're not seeing it yet. And it's going to be the most amazing thing ever built on the Sunshine Coast as far as Christianity is concerned. And it will leave a legacy from generation to generation to generation. No longer can we be trusted to even get rental buildings in the community that we live in now, because some people won't rent to Christian organisations because we're not inclusive enough. So we need to own our property, put our stake in the ground, and say this is God's property, and we're going to be here for generation to generation to generation. No matter what society says, we're going to be here because God's got an answer for our city and our nation, and I'm excited for you all. And we have got the same shoes on, hun, and you tricked me again. Before I got married, I actually thought I could dress myself. Exactly. And then I got married and realised I couldn't dress at all. Women never take their husbands on for what they are. They take them on as a project. And they don't say, oh, I love you. They go, I can do something with that. For the amount of times I come out dressed in the morning with this up to this, like, what the heck? Look, go back and change. So I got to a place where I just sat on the bed with the kids and waited my turn. So I just waited. Whatever's ready for me, I just get dressed in. That's how it goes in my place. We had our legacy weekend just a few weeks back, our Faith, Love, Hope season, and it's a special day. And it's not because of just generosity, it's because of the focus of vision and mission and possibility and potential. And I love it. It's one of my favourite weekends of the year at our church. And I just know I get emotional every time I see what people commit to, the commitment to God and who He is in the future. And I know you're no different to that. And I want to speak into that a little bit today. Well, by the way, I know you'll love great praise and worship. City Point Worship has just put out a new album called Look to the Sun. S-O-N, of course, not S-U-N. And it's unbelievably good worship. It does come with a warning: do not play in motor vehicle. Because if you put a praise song on, it's that good, you will speed. And you'll get a ticket. And if you're crazy enough to put a worship song on, you're done. Your eyes will close. Your hands intuitively will lift off the wheel, and you will crash. So do not play it in your motor vehicle. But it's available on Apple and Spotify, all the things you could. We actually bought out vinyls, didn't we? You can actually buy a record with that album on. If you get on our website, you can purchase one of those. But yeah, it's all on that, so grab hold of that, it'd be great. So today I want to honour you too and just think of the vision that you've had for this church, for how long you've been here and what you've done, and your family, and what you've brought to the Sunshine Coast. And I look at you as heroes of the faith, I really do. And what you're entering into, the size of the mission and the vision, you're a braver man than me. That's all I can say. And God has got a great plan, and I'm excited to be a part of that in a very small way that I can. So today I want to speak to you on generosity, of course. And I don't say that. I think it's one of the most powerful spiritual principles in the Bible. I think we misread generosity sometime as an action, where it's more of a hard attitude. Generous people are generous. That's not what they do, it's who they are. And out of that comes the action of whatever that is. So I've called today Generosity, the Pathway to Influence. And I'm going to start with the book of Mark, which is the most significant book in the Bible. The book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 17. And I think we've got scriptures. I can repeat most of them. There they are. And it says this: "And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons, they will speak with new tongues." But I just want to speak to the first part of that scripture. And these signs will follow those who believe. Can I tell you, whatever you believe, the signs of that believing follow you. Whatever you believe. I can tell you what you believe about certain things, not by what you say, but the signs that follow you. So it's important to understand. You know what you really believe by not what you thought, not what you hope, not what you wish, but by what you see. About God, about church, about marriage, about family. It all ends up being whatever you believe, the signs of that believing follow you. You don't get what you want in life, you get what you believe in life. It's not what you want, it's what you believe. We will want lots of different things. We'll never get them because you don't believe. You've got to believe before you receive. Right believing, I believe, equals right signs. If you want to change your outer reality, you've first got to change an inner belief system. It doesn't work the other way around. You've got to change what you believe, and then your outer reality starts to change. So today, I want to talk about generosity believing, because I believe generosity is the pathway to influence, breakthrough, and blessing. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten. Right there, it says it all. The generosity is the most significant value in the entire universe. God so loved that he gave. Incredible generosity leads to incredible results. And there's no doubt, and as a believer individually and as the church, our lives should be a reflection of God's ways. Our lifestyle should be an intentional lifestyle of generosity. Not just a mad emotional moment stirred up because of somebody saying something, but a lifestyle of who we believe in and what we believe about him. God is generous to the core. He is and has a generous spirit. As a matter of fact, why we all still exist and the universe is kept in place is the generosity of God. If God withdraws his generosity, everything comes to a screaming halt. Psalm 51 verse 12 says this: "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and uphold me by your what? Your generous spirit." What upholds us? What keeps us in place as people and as a universe or a creation is the generosity of God. You will notice that God is not life limited, he is life eternal. He is not life miserable, he is life abundant. He is not El Cheapo, he is El Shaddai. There's a context in God that we need to breathe as he breathes it. You know that what astounds me is the first miracle that Jesus does. Now, up until this moment in history, Jesus is Joseph's son, the carpenter. He's now spent time in the wilderness, pushing back darkness with Satan. He comes out of that wilderness and now he's about to start his ministry life. And he could have chosen anything or any way to establish or show humankind who God was and what God was like. And yet, he did not pick a healing miracle. He did not pick a deliverance miracle. He picked a generosity miracle. The first miracle that Jesus does is a generosity miracle. He goes to a wedding where they run out of wine. And they get to the end, and the groom and the team said, "Hey, Jesus, we're out of wine. Can you do anything?" And he said, "Bring the water to me, the urns of water." And if you know the story, he speaks to the water, and it turns into significantly good wine. I'm sure it was Penfolds, Barossa, something like that. And it was at the end of the wedding ceremony, so everybody had had their fill. And I don't know what happened to the wine. I've got this feeling the married couple sold it the day after and bought their first house. But I'm making that up. I don't know. But the point being is, Jesus could have picked any way to start his ministry. He could have healed the sick. He could have sent a demon out of somebody. But the way God just chose to show mankind who he was through a generosity miracle. So don't ever underestimate the power of generosity. He can't help himself. You see, just a few scriptures later, 5,000 people, feeds them all out of a couple of fish and a few loaves, and feeds. And not only does he feed 5,000 people on that particular day, when they're finished and they are full, he gets 12 baskets full that are left over. He can't help himself. His generosity is overwhelming. And isn't it interesting how much value changes in the hands of different people? A couple of fish and a few loaves in my hands won't feed many people, but in his hands. You know, a basketball worth $80 in my hand, but in LeBron James' hands, it's worth $100 million. A golf stick in my hand's worth nothing. But in Tiger Woods, it's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's so interesting about what we put in people's hands. And if you put the right things in the hands of Jesus, you bring your offering to Jesus and put it in his hands, we're going to a whole nother. He can't help himself. I believe great Christianity is characterized by great generosity. It is our pathway to influence, breakthrough, and blessing. Isaiah 32 verse 8. But a generous man devises generous things. Two things here. A generous person devises, they're thinking about it, they're considering generosity because they can't help themselves. And secondly, by generosity, he shall stand. One of the most underrated spiritual weapons we have in the Bible is generosity. Book of Malachi says you bring your tithes and offerings to the storehouse and God will rebuke the devourer on your behalf. Generosity is not just something we do, it is a spiritual weapon against darkness. Protect your family, your future, just by being generous. By generosity, we shall not bow down, we shall not give up, we shall not be put down, we shall stand. We shall not be poorer, we shall be richer, we shall stand. By generosity, we stand. It's not an emotional, mad flurry of feelings. It's planned, intentional giving, a lifestyle of generosity. With a smile, encouragement, a helping hand, serving God's plans and purposes, or giving of our finances. It's an attitude of how we can make a difference. That's what generosity is. It's what we believe. It's how we live. And there's always an opportunity to be generous. There's always an opportunity to speak into somebody's life, to encourage them, to help them, to have them. But you got to think about it. It's got to be a part of who you are. And that's what God is calling us to be, is a generous people. It's what we do. We think about it. We consider. You know, I carry extra money in my wallet so I can be generous. So I'm ready to be, I'm thinking about it. How can I be generous? I want to be prepared for generosity. I remember a number of years ago, a family came into church. I was talking to them, little boys about 5 at the time. I bent down and said, "How you doing, buddy?" And he said, "Oh, great." And he said, "Pastor Mark," said, "What?" He said, "My tooth came out." And the tooth fairy's going to, do you have tooth fairies on the Sunshine Coast? Some of you don't know how to answer that, do you? All got worried. Can I answer yes? No, they pretend. We know that. And he said, the tooth fairy is going to give me $2 for this tooth. And as soon as he said that, I thought, you know what? I'm never going to be outdone by a tooth fairy. So I looked back and said, $2. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $20 for that tooth. He looked at me with the biggest, gummiest smile you ever seen. He handed his tooth over. I gave him $20. He became one of my best disciples. He said, "Man, tooth fairies are stingy. The house of God is where the blessing is." He went home that afternoon. Listen to this. And he renamed his teddy bear to Pastor Mark. What greater accolade can a human being ever receive than to have a teddy bear named after them? $20. Actually, it cost me a lot more because the word got out. So I had lines of kids with teeth. And it cost me about $400 if I remember. And I still have a jar of teeth in my office. Generosity is an attitude. It's a thought about thing. It's something that you're looking for. And, you know, it's so fascinating that you actually look for things you care about or what you believe in. You see things. You know, if you love coffee shops, you see coffee shops. If you love shoe shops, ladies, you see shoe shops. You see what's important to you, what you love. And if you love being generous, you see opportunity. It's so important that we start to realize that God's trying to put within us a generous heart, a generous soul. It's God's way of doing life. Generous people pray generously. They worship generously. They encourage generously. A generous crowd responds to good preaching. Generous crowd. I knew I was in front of a generous crowd. So today, quickly, I'm going to look at two major characteristics of a generous spirit. Number one, a generous spirit sees possibility. They see possibility because they're looking for possibility. Generous people are optimists. They're faith people. They see possibility. They see new beginnings. They see where others see impossibility and ends. They don't see that at all. They're not discouraged or thrown by setbacks or problems. They see them as not walls but stepping stones. And I saw Pastor Rick say before, never, never. And one of the most famous speeches in the world was a very quick speech by Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of England in the Second World War. He said those exact same words, never, 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 never give up. I mean, it was one of the greatest speeches in history. I wish I'd thought of it. But he said this as well. He said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. He also was accosted at a tea party by a woman that hated him. And she said, Mr. Churchill, if I was your wife, I'd put poison in your tea. He turned to her and said, Madam, if I was your husband, I'd drink it. Generous people have an ability to rejoice in whatever they're going through. They are faith people. It's so fascinating that believers say, I trust God with my eternity and not my wallet. It's a contradiction of concepts right there. Generous people understand that they trust God with everything, all that they are. And nowhere does God ever promise by giving He'll make you poorer. Nowhere. And after being this for 40-something years old, man, I tell you right now, God is a God of blessing and breakthrough. Because a generous spirit knows that whatever they already have is enough to take them to the next place. See, people that complain or are concerned about their future don't understand the principles of God. God has already given you, it doesn't matter how small or big it is, He's given enough, if used properly, can take you to the next place. I've had numbers of staff over the years on the exact same amount of money, and some have been blessed and some haven't. It's not about what you do or don't have. It's about what you do with what you do have. 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 3 says this. As His divine power has given to us how many things? All things to pertain to life and godliness. All right, so He's already given us all we need for life and for godliness. And when we pray, when we ask God to do something on our behalf, His response is always, what will you do with what you've already been given? That's why you can't hope for a healing. You have to give prayer for a healing. You've got to give something that you already have. You've got to give faith for a healing. Nothing happens on earth till first nothing comes from heaven until first something is given on earth. Jesus said, I must go that He, the Holy Spirit, may come. Nothing comes from heaven until first something is given on earth. So God has given us all that we need. It's what we do with it. It's what we do with our faith, our love, our joy, our hope, and our finances. We've been given enough to prosper, to do well, to increase, to overcome, to get influence. It's just a matter of what we do with it. Generous people see what they have and know if it's sown and invested into God's purposes, then the result will be increase and breakthrough. But if kept, if buried, it loses its potential and its power. So a generous spirit is always looking to see God's opportunities to give. Generous people believe, so they look, they find opportunity, they see possibility. But I actually believe, for with God, nothing is impossible. For with God, nothing is impossible. It will be determined on what we believe we can do with what He's already given us. There is enough faith, love, and hope and finance in this room to build the sanctuary and go beyond. Not because we're all super wealthy people, but if we all contribute to what God says, in His hands, He can feed the 5,000 people and go further. Generous people believe, so they look, they find opportunity, they see possibility. The second thing about generous people is this: a generous spirit sees beyond itself. A generous spirit always sees other people. It sees the future, like the legacy we spoke about and the way we're building for the future. And because of this, we invest into them both. Because we see that beyond who we are, that we see other people have need and there's ways for God to move, we therefore see opportunity to be a part of the answer for those people. Generous people know that what they give is never lost. Your generosity today will not only decide the power of the future, but your generosity today will never leave your life. It will just leave your present, end up in your future multiplied, and on the way through changed a whole bunch of lives. It's a perfect God plan. 2 Corinthians chapter 9 verse 10 says this: "Now may He, God, who supplies seed," so God supplies our seed to sow and our bread for food, supply and multiply the seed you have sown. You've got to sow something, and you've got to give something, whether it be faith or hope or love. It doesn't matter. You've got to give, multiply the seed you have sown, and increase the fruits of your righteousness. God supplies seed and He supplies bread. He gives both. And I think that's fascinating that we understand that. If I had to go a watermelon up here today and I'd cut it in half, well, if I could find one that wasn't, mutilated by technology, and these have black seeds in them once in the day. They actually had black seeds in them because they were real seeds, and now they're, modified and they got little white things in there or nothing. But if I was to hold a real watermelon up here that had black seeds in it and said to you, well, what's more important, the flesh of the watermelon, the juicy red fruit, or the little black seeds, depending on how hungry you were at the time, your answer could waver a little bit. And some think, man, that flesh looks good. And others say, no, we need the seeds. And both are important, because you need bread to survive today, but you need seeds to be sown to survive tomorrow. And so God never asked, He gives us our bread so we can eat it. He doesn't ask for all of our money. He doesn't ask us to go stupid and not to be reasonable with our thought patterns and our budgets. He's not saying, I want your bread. He's saying, no, eat your bread, but don't eat your seed. And everything in God has a seed portion and a bread portion. Your time has a bread portion. That means that most of it's for you, but there is a seed portion that should be devoted to kingdom purposes and helping other people. Your gifts and talents, how you make a living, is a bread and seed thing. Bread is though you have a job, you can make enough money to live reasonably well, put your kids through school, all the things you want to do. But there is a seed portion that's not meant to be kept, that's meant to be sown for the sake of somebody else. And God doesn't want to eat you to eat. He doesn't want to eat you to. Don't eat your seed. Sow your seed. Eat your bread, because then He will bring all that you need towards yourself. Because everybody wins. It's our responsibility to invest now for the sake of the future and the next generation. That's what legacy stands. How sad if we went to all the work that we've done over the last 30 years and didn't think about the next generation coming through. That it all died out with us. And, I'm on that journey. I'm well in the second half of the game. Well, I can't deny. I'm not defined by my age, but I don't deny my age. I'm well into the second half of the game. I've got a certain amount of years that I've got to make certainly huge impact in. And I want to leave something that's significant to the generation that is coming up behind us to take us into our future. So it's important we understand that legacy is an important part of all we do. You know, when I arrived at our church, City Point, back in the year 2000, it was a big building, but it's a big empty building, and it wasn't air conditioned. And I looked at all the people there, and we're in the middle of summer. And I'm thinking, and we gave out, you know, back when we gave out bulletins to read, no one read them. They were like fanning themselves because it was so hot in the building. It was just like a madhouse. And I looked at them all and said, none of you brought your friends because you want to keep them as your friends. Because if they sat in this building today, they would end up as blobs on their seat with their eyeballs bugging out because they would have melted. And it was the beginning of our offering time. We said, you know what, we need to take an offering up to air condition the building. That was our first, we started, and I said, it's not for all you, you're already here. I said, but it's all the people that aren't here. It's for the future, it's that. And so that was the beginning of people saying, you know what, I see that we can make a difference for the future by what we decide to do today. And it's no doubt here in this church, that same place. So we raised enough money to put in an air. We actually bought the old air conditioners from the Expo Games. Was it the Expo? What's it called back then? Not the game. The Expo 88. We bought the air conditioners from some big building back then and put them in. And they've been going for 23 years. And they're just starting to not go. And now they've got 6 units. And they're worth $200,000 a unit to replace. So now we've got to speak to the people again about giving for the air conditioning, and I'm just going to turn it off one Sunday. That should do it. That's right. You forget we're sitting in an air-conditioned building because some people 23 years ago were generous. They were generous. And it's the same today. You and I have an opportunity to invest now for the future. We are no poorer because of it, but others will be blessed. The future is better because we decide to live generous lives. Kingdom advances generationally. It's not like a speaker or a voice to a nation. It's churches go from generation to generation to generation. And there's no doubt, as the days we move into, the church needs to be stronger now than it's ever been before. We've got to be more established. We've got to have our stake in the ground and say we're not going anywhere, and we will not bow our knee to the narrative of this day. Because leadership changes, narratives change, but we've decided to serve the one that doesn't change. Our ceiling should be the next generation's floor. We need to do what it takes to strengthen ourselves for the purposes of God for the next generation, that the kingdom advances from one generation to the next. I love Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. It says this, therefore we also, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. I don't know what that really means, but I always envisage that statement right there are all the believers that have gone before us. And they're in heaven in a giant stadium. And they're looking down at us. And from generation to generation, they pass the baton to the next generation to run the race, to bring Jesus to that generation. And let's read it. And we're surrounded with such a great cloud of witnesses. Let us lay aside every weight and sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. There's a race that's set before us, our turn. And at some stage, we pass the baton or the baton to the next generation. I don't want to be known in history as the ones who dropped the baton. I want us to be the ones that pass the baton to the next generation, stronger, bigger, and better than ever before. Getting stronger, one generation to the next. So what am I saying today? And generous people see possibility. They see opportunity. They see others. They go beyond themselves. So they devise generous plans. I got a friend who was in a church, grew up in church his whole life. He was a plumber. And he had a plan from the age of 16 that one day he would be able to give his church $1 million check. Planned it for 45 years. Worked hard. One day, that was his dream, or one of his dreams. And just before COVID, he said, Mark, I wrote that check out for $1 million. But it wasn't a mad flurry. It was a devised plan of time, effort, and vision. And none of us all have to write out $1 million checks, though if you've got it, you should. But we all can play our part. We've all got something that we can put into the hands of Jesus, and when he breathes upon it, and when he blesses the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, it goes way beyond what we thought possible. Generous people plan generous things. Plan to be generous, like Jesus. He upholds us by his generous spirit. Listen to this. We uphold others by our generous spirit. Today, let's make sure we say yes to Jesus, yes to the future. Bring what your part. God never asks us to give what we don't have. Never. He always says, what will you do with what you do have? What you decide today destines the future. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes, let me pray. Father, I thank you for every person here today. I thank you for the faith in this room, the generosity of the past. I thank you as they step into a bigger realm. God, a more significant mission to be a lighthouse for the Sunshine Coast. That, God, you would speak to their hearts in such a powerful way. God, as we all play our part in your hands, amazing, what was possible, what was small becomes massive. What was natural becomes supernatural. What was ordinary becomes extraordinary. God, we trust you today for our future, our families, our church, and the generation to come. In Jesus' name, amen. Pastor Rick, I'll hand this back over to you.